We are given an equation that has two variables, x and y. Are we able to find the values of these variables? If we think about it, there are infinite solutions for x and y. 1 and 8, 2 and 7, 3 and 6, and so on. So, if we are only given this equation, there are no fixed values for x and y. But what if we were given a second equation? Now, x and y have fixed solutions, and we can solve for x and y. There are two methods we can use to find the values of x and y. The first is called substitution. To use substitution, we need to define one variable in terms of the other variable. This can be done by isolating. So, in our equations, let's define x in terms of y. We could use either equation. I'm going to pick our first equation, x plus y equals 9. All we need to do to isolate x is subtract y from both sides. And we have x equals 9 minus y. So now we know x in terms of y. The next step in substitution is to substitute this newly found value for x in our other equation. So if we substitute in the value of our x, we get this. Notice that in this equation, we only have one variable, y. Since we only have one variable, we can find its value by isolating. We begin by distributing the 2, which gets us this. And now we can combine the y's. And we get 18 minus 3y equals 3. Here we see that we need to get rid of the 18. So we can subtract 18 from both sides. And we're left with negative 3y equals negative 15. And finally, to get rid of the negative 3, we divide both sides by negative 3. And we're left with y equals 5. Awesome. Okay, now we know the value for y. Let's find the value for x also. Remember earlier, we found that x equals 9 minus y. So if we substitute in the y here, we get x equals 9 minus 5. X equals 4. So we found our values for x and y. X is 4 and y is 5. We can substitute these back into our original equations to make sure they are correct. 4 plus 5 equals 9, and 2 times 4, that's 8, minus 5 equals 3. Both of these are correct. We found the values for x and y. Now, a common mistake some people make when solving using substitution is they substitute back into the equation that they just used. In our example, we used the equation x plus y equals 9, and we found that x equals 9 minus y. Here, we can't put it back into the same equation. That would give us 9 equals 9, and that doesn't help us solve for x and y. So, to substitute properly, we must substitute in a new equation. Another method we could use to find terms is called elimination. Let's use two new equations. Notice that our variables a and b are both on the left side of their equations, and also notice that one equation has positive b and another has negative b. B minus b is 0. Elimination allows us to combine these two equations together. So we can just add the stuff on the left together and the stuff on the right together. To do this, we see that we can cancel out the b's, which leaves us with only one variable in the equation, a. Here we have 3a equals 24. So now we can isolate the a. If we divide both sides by 3, we get a equals 24 divided by 3, which is 8. So a is 8. Now to solve for b, we can substitute 8 in for an a in one of our equations. Let's use the first one. A plus b equals 11. If we substitute in for a, we get 8 plus b equals 11. To isolate b, we can subtract 8 from both sides, and we find that b equals 3. So we found, using elimination, that a is 8 and b is 3. If our answer is correct, we should be able to put these values back into our equations. We already know that it works for the first equation, but what about our second equation? Let's substitute in the values for a and b. This gives us 2 times 8, that's 16, minus 3, and that equals 13. So this is correct. We solved for a and b. Amazing. So now that we have a little feel for substitution and elimination, let's do a practice question together. Given these two equations, solve for x and y. You can use either substitution or elimination. If you can, think about which one might be more efficient or quicker. So see if you can do this on your own, and then come back and we'll tackle it together. Alright, there are many ways to solve for x and y, and your method may not look exactly like what I'm about to do. But as long as we get the same answers, we're gold. Okay, here's one way to solve using substitution. To substitute, we have to first solve for one of the variables beforehand. Let's use the first equation, 3x plus y equals 4. And let's isolate the y, since it doesn't have a coefficient. To isolate, all we have to do is subtract 3x from both sides, and we find that y equals 4 minus 3x. Great. Now, we just plug in this value for y in our other equation. Here, it is important to see that we are subtracting parentheses. This is the same as multiplying everything inside by negative 1. So, if we distribute, we get negative 4 and positive 3x. Now we can add the x's together, and we see that we have 4x minus 4 equals 24. To get rid of the negative 4, we add 4 to both sides, which gives us 4x equals 28, and we can get rid of the 4 coefficient by dividing both sides by 4, and we find that x equals 7. Great! So now we know x, which means we can now solve for y. We know that y equals 4 minus 3x. X is 7. So y equals 4 minus 21, which is negative 17. To verify our answer, we can substitute our values for x and y into our equations. In our first equation, we get this. 3 times 7 is 21, and minus 17 is 4. And in our second equation, 7 minus negative 17, well, subtracting negative 17 is the same as adding 17. So this is the same as 7 plus 17, which is indeed 24. Awesome! We found the values for x and y using substitution. Now, we could have also used elimination to solve for x and y. We notice that on the left we have plus y and minus y, which we might be able to cancel out. Adding everything together on the left, we get 3x plus y minus y. And on the right, we have 24 plus 4. Here, we can cancel out the y's. That means the only variable left in this equation is x. 24 plus 4 is 28. And adding our x's together, we get 4x. So now we have 4x equals 28. To isolate x, we can divide both sides by 4, and we see that x equals 7. And this matches the answer we got earlier using substitution. Now to find y, we can substitute x in one of our equations, and we find that y is indeed negative 17. Our answers match. As you can see, there are multiple ways to go about solving for two variables, and there are many ways to arrive at the same answer. And that's the beauty of math. Well, great work today. And let's quickly recap. If an equation has more than one variable, we can't solve it unless we have further information, such as a second equation or the value of one of the variables. To solve equations with more than one variable, we can use substitution or elimination. To solve using substitution, first we find the value of one of the variables in terms of the other variable. Next, we substitute the value we just found in our other equation and find the value of the variable. After finding the value of that variable, we use its value to find the value of the remaining variable. And to use elimination, if we can cancel out a variable, we begin by adding the two equations together. Then, we solve for the variable that's left in the equation. And finally, we substitute the value of the variable we just found out into one of the equations to find the value of the variable we canceled out earlier. At first, substitution and elimination may seem like a lot, so here's some practice for you to do on your own. Comment your answers down below and check the description for the answer. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Comment any feedback or ideas. We'd love to hear from you. And that's all for this video. Keep working hard and keep learning. Thank you for watching.